So, after the Battle of Actium, Cleopatra's in a pretty bad spot. Rome is at the gates of Alexandria, and her relationship with Mark Antony is on the rocks. But here's the thing, she's got options. I mean, she could flee to India with Antony and live out the remainder of their lives in luxury. Or she could try to parley with Octavian and arrange some kind of deal where she keeps her fortune and maybe even her throne. But then again, being a Ptolemaic pharaoh isn't all it's cracked up to be. We saw how much autonomy Cleopatra really had when Rome flexed their military muscle. It wasn't much, so staying in Egypt doesn't seem like the best option either. And finally, Cleopatra could just throw herself on the mercy of Rome, submit to Octavian, and live out the rest of her life as his trophy wife. Yeah, this might actually not be so bad if you were born and raised in the Roman world. But Cleopatra wasn't born and raised in the Roman world. And although she spoke the language and understood the culture better than most, she was never going to be one of them. And Cleopatra understood that. She knew she couldn't live in Rome, and she also knew she couldn't live in Egypt. And so Cleopatra chose a third option. She chose death. Before we get into how she managed to pull off one of the most infamous deaths in all of history, let's talk about what led her to choose this particular course of action. Back in Rome, Antony's defeat at sea is crushing. He loses the majority of his fleet and his army, and his dreams of conquest are shattered. It's not just the loss of ships and men that bothers him so much, though. It's the realization that Cleopatra didn't have his back. He thought she'd come to his aid, but she didn't. And to add insult to injury, she watched him lose everything while she stayed safe in Egypt. Now, it's important to remember that Cleopatra and Antony had never been married. They had 2 kids together, but they weren't man and wife. And according to Antony, he was totally devoted to his true wife, Octavia. Sure, he had a bunch of mistresses back in Rome, but his eyes were always for Octavia. So when he learns that Cleopatra has taken another lover, he flips out. She must be punished. And he starts making plans to invade Egypt and bring Cleopatra to Roman chains. This is bad news for Cleopatra because Antony has a lot of friends in high places. He's the triumvir of the eastern provinces, and he has the loyalty of many of Rome's most powerful citizens. If he wants to march on Alexandria, he probably can. Fortunately for Cleopatra, Fulvia, Antony's sister, decides to stir up some drama in Rome. She throws a tantrum because Antony has divorced Octavia to make room for Cleopatra. And Antony is forced to go back to Rome to sort things out. While he's gone, Cleopatra sends her trusted general, Achilles, to prepare Alexandria for defense. She knows that a siege is coming and she wants to be ready. Unfortunately for Cleopatra, Achilles lacks the military genius of his queen, and when Octavian arrives outside the city, Achilles panics. He thinks Cleopatra is doomed and tries to strike a deal with Octavian behind her back. This doesn't work, though, because Octavian executes Achilles for treason and continues to lay siege to the city. During this siege, Cleopatra and Octavian exchange letters. He wants her to surrender. She refuses. Then he threatens to invade. She calls his bluff. But deep down, Cleopatra is terrified. She knows that the Egyptians can't win this fight. So she looks for other solutions. Maybe she can escape to India. She knows that Antony would never agree to this, but she also knows he's too proud to accept a dishonorable peace. She could sail to India and wait for Antony to arrive. But when he shows up, Rome will be at his throat before he even disembarks his ship. The only other option is to try to make a deal with Octavian. She despises the man, but she might have to swallow her pride and strike a deal. As the fighting continues, though, Cleopatra realizes that something funny is happening. Octavian isn't trying to capture her or kill her. He's trying to convince her to surrender peacefully. And if she agrees, he'll let her keep her treasure. He even promises her a noble death, which is a nice touch. Cleopatra understands what he's doing. Octavian wants to parade her through the streets of Rome as a trophy and tell everyone that he has captured Alexandria. But he doesn't want to dirty his hands with blood. He doesn't want to take the city. He wants Cleopatra to walk through those gates willingly, and that's why she does it. We know this story mostly because of Plutarch's biography of Antony. According to Plutarch, Cleopatra walks through the gates of Rome wearing the same clothes she wore in her statue in the Temple of Venus Genetrix. She sits on a golden throne carried by elephants, and her head is adorned with a crown made of precious jewels. The entire city turns out to greet her, and she becomes the toast of Rome. People are amazed at her beauty, her wealth, and her intellect. She entertains the leading senators and their wives and enjoys the ride of her life. Meanwhile, back in Alexandria, Octavian has his soldiers plunder the city. He finds Cleopatra's treasure and adds it to his own collection, and he takes all of the fine art and sends it to Rome. He then returns to Alexandria to collect his final prize. But when he arrives, he finds that Cleopatra isn't there. She's dead. Cleopatra's chosen method of ending her life is one of the most common in all of literature, the venomous snake bite. There's no dishonor in this method of dying. In fact, the Egyptians considered the asp to be a sacred animal. They associated it with their gods, and they believed that it was the vehicle that would carry their souls to the afterlife. That's why Cleopatra chooses this particular method. She doesn't want to die, but she won't be taken alive, so she uses the asp to take her own life. And that's why she arranges for the snake to be brought to her chambers. It's not just an easy way to end her own life, it's an Egyptian way to go. She wants to be prepared, and she wants to be respected. So she arranges for everything to be done properly. This is the last gift that she gives to her homeland, her people, and her legacy. She goes out in style, but Cleopatra's death doesn't just have to do with her personal feelings. There's a political aspect as well. She knows that when she dies, Egypt is finished. The Ptolemaic dynasty ends with her, and there won't be any more pharaohs. Egypt will become a province of Rome, and her homeland will be nothing more than a memory. That's why she chooses to die rather than live on as a Roman puppet. She doesn't want to be a pawn in Octavian's game. She wants to go out with dignity, so she chooses death over humiliation. So that's the death of Cleopatra, a tragic end to a tragic life. But what do you think? Do you think she was right to go out like this? Or do you think she should have accepted Octavian's offer and lived out the rest of her life in Rome? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. See you next time.